News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And it's again a lovely day. It's not raining, that's what I mean really. It's nice and dry, and the traffic's building up, and life goes on. But are we missing something? Are we missing good governance? Are we missing real democracy? Do we really have accountability and responsibility? Can we really take it when on one side of the newspaper the story says that the taxes on small cars has gone up, and in an article just below that is information that the parliamentarians are raising themselves their salaries again? Really? And so to discuss these matters, and of course that other matter, we've all forgotten about it. It's the cornerstone of democracy. It's called elections. Thanks to our Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government, Faisal Mustafa, he managed to delay the local government polls by about 2.5 years. And now we want to know what's happened to the provincial elections. And the Minister seems to be rather busy with a subject that he admittedly doesn't know, cricket, and yet he's the Minister of Sport who's trying to cope with a subject that he knows almost nothing of. And the professionals are refusing unless there's a commitment to change. And change always sort of creates a little bit of a rumpus. But to discuss all these matters and a bit more is Mr. Keerthi Tennakoon. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Faraz.
Now then, really, are we missing good governance, responsibility, accountability?
When it comes to the good governance, there are more the questions than answers during the last 3.5 years. And when we look into the papers early morning, each and every day, it seems like we are getting more and more frustrated news about good governance. But there are very positive changes has happened in some sectors, but the real issues are hidden down there. As you very correctly said, the transparency is becoming a very big question mark each and every day. We saw yesterday the continuous reports coming on delaying of the elections in one hand. Yeah. In the other hand, we saw the perpetual case was taken yesterday. Yeah. And once again, more questions than answers.
Now, that was interesting yesterday, and is reported in the press today.
Yes.
Arjun Aloysius had asked for permission to be able to attend the AGM of a company that is owned by him.
Very surprising, very surprising.
But my thing is this: although he is incarcerated temporarily in remand, his mindset is on looking after his money.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, he's worried about that. Then, where is the worry for our ministers? Where's the worry that they have to look after the public money? For heaven's sake, the stated accounts of that company of Perpetual Treasuries was about 12.6 billion.
It could raise up to 32 billion exactly. Plus.
And that's what this bond 2 is all about, right? And yet, the Prime Minister and Manik Samaravikrama, they say, oh, we've got 12 billion stuck in the central bank, and that's it. So, Keerthi, it's like, you know, you rob, you break in somewhere, you rob, and then you say, you're caught with the balance, loot, and they say, well, we recovered that. So does the policeman pat you on your back and say, all right, off you go, Johnny, you know, all right? No. There are cases and all sorts of things. But these people are suggesting, that's what they're sort of suggesting. And where is this man, Arjuna Mahendran? Where is he?
The real issue here is that where this rob money came from. It's the People's Trust Fund, People's Provident Fund, it's the Insurance Fund, it is the University Grant Commission's funds, it was Mahapola funds, it was 6 other trust which was where the central bank is taking care of. So this is NSB and the People's Bank. These are the institutions where this money was looted out to do this treasury bond issue, and this is people's money, and there are so many organizations and setups, structures to ensure that people's money is taken care of. But in this case, we haven't seen any of these institutions are really taking care of the people's money. For example, until we expose the issue of the University Grant Commission funds, and no one was knowing about it, and the relevant officials, the University Grant Commission or the other entities has not taken any action of this. When we shouted out of that, then there were very limited actions now has taken off. On the other hand, the University Provident Fund, it's, I mean, 6 million people's money, and this money is belonging to the working class of this country.
Yes.
And this money has gone out. This, the officials in the Labour Department or the Labour Ministry for that matter has taken anything serious out of this. How to recover this money, have the in this case, when we were very pleased to have this presidential commission, where we saw the report, half of that for that matter, but here not a single indictment is served yet. And we are day by day forgetting about this particular issue. Is Ravi Karunanayake indicted for the bribery thing? Is Ravi Karunanayake indicted for lying under oath? Oh, there were some names mentioned, and we know more parliamentarians has taken money. The investigations going on a very slow space at the moment, and more questions coming. And then finally we exposed even the Mahapola Fund money was used to this treasury bond issue.
You see, Keerthi, the commission is very clear. They've said that it is very clear that Arjuna Mahendran leaked information, sensitive information to the benefit of perpetual treasuries. They said that he had acted mala fide to the benefit of perpetual treasuries. And of course, perpetual treasuries is not just some little company. Well, it may be little, but the main key point is that it was owned by the members of the family of the son-in-law's family. Now the thing is, in spite of all these sort of guidelines or what the information that the commissioners found, and they've said that subject to magisterial charges being brought, for example, they said that perpetual are liable for twice the amount of the losses suffered by the EPF and other state institutions. They calculated that loss at about 8.5 billion. Twice that is 17 billion. Plus the 8.5, that's 25 billion there alone. And then it's a little bit rich for Messrs. Vikramasinghe and Samara Vikrama. They're not lawyers, they're just two people, okay? To come out and say Tambasatayak Paduak ne, and to say, well, we've got 12 billion. Is that, what about the rest of the money?
No, that's where this bond 2 issue is coming on. And after exposing all these issues, especially case related to the University Grant Commission, Mahapola Fund, and 6 other trusts which hold by the central bank, and we have continuously wrote to the relevant authorities, what are the actions you are taking on?
Exactly.
Now, after our communications, we know that one case is filed to get this money by the Aegis department, but I mean, it will take another 6 months at least to hear this case, file this case in a way, and then another 6 months to go ask perpetual treasurers to appear before the courts if everything goes in a normal manner. But here, in this particular case, bond issue always abnormal, right? The lawyers and the professionals, the political pressure is dragging up this and delaying purposely this particular issue. Now, the real question comes, there's a man who earned such a big money from the bond scam, and he has invested money with the Mendes company, and now, yesterday we saw he is asking to go abroad to attend the AGM, and the money he has looted out of this particular country, or from these people's money, is not taken care of any people. Earlier we saw during the COP committee meetings, the Attorney General said continuously, I was not given enough information. Auditor General was not given the relevant documents, information, and they have not replied to their queries and all that. But here, after the presidential election, presidential commission on the bond issue, now the Auditor General is having powers, more powers for that matter, to do a proper inquiry into this. But for that matter, the Mahapola Fund or the UGC funds or the other additional 6 trusts which was held by the central bank has not investigated. We haven't seen it is happening. We try to find out whether they are doing any proper investigations into this, but the calculations are not done, the proper investigations are not done. That's where the question is, where we are heading. The people thought...
In fact, yes, you're quite right, because the Bond Commission report asks for a forensic audit of those 2016 bonds, the March ones, because their term finished on the 31st of March. So then one of these bonds, one was on the 29th of March and the other was 31st. So they needed more time, but they did the maximum they could, and they've got all the main information out. So they've established that sensitive information went past, and they also noted that the way when they played the clip of Arjuna Losha speaking to Kasunpali Sena, it appeared that, and the commissioners made this note, not me, they made a note that it was quite clear that the way they spoke about this, that they were used to having this kind of information within their realm, right? And he's fixing the rate. He's telling, the boss is telling the CEO, you know, look, this is the rate. I'll leave you a little bit of leeway, and so on and so forth. And all that money, therefore, is tainted money. And you're quite right when you say they then took this money and invested it all over the place. I call that proceeds of crime. And yesterday, Maitri Gunaratne agreed, or the day before, he said there's no view. That is the thing, that those are proceeds of crime, subject to a magisterial order, of course. But why is there no action? Why is the central bank not having investigated it? I have confirmation.
My issue is that there are so many minor issues related to this. Why not a single indictment is served in any of these the recommendations made by
the Commission of Inquiry? They also held that they were unhappy with the actions or the inaction or the quietness or the silence of some officials at the central bank. And unfortunately, some of these people are still serving in that position. And one of them was allowed to retire gracefully. Gracefully what? It cost the people of this country so much of money.
And for us, this goes much further. When we look into this University Grant Commission funds money and the people who has handled that, of course, still those officials are operating down there. The people who did this with the NSB
are still there.
Still down there. The people who did it with these, the Bank of Ceylon is still down there. These are the same people people who has operated this crime.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this particular commission has done any justice to the crime which has
Well, I
happened.
think the action thereafter hasn't done any justice to the commission. Because because of the commission, we've managed to get a lot of information.
And more information is now available, and based on the serial numbers which was presented to some other people and some other investigations, we made this particular calculation of 32 billion plus. But these information, is it not reached to the Auditor General for that matter? Is it not reached to the Bribery and Corruption Commission for that matter? Why this delay of investigation and why these indictments are not served is the biggest question.
Do you know, in one of the reports that came out of the central bank, it was noted that when they applied for their license, they had to put in a capital of 300 million. But by the end of May 2016, in which uncle, father-in-law, was still the governor, the profits of Perpetual had grown to 11 billion rupees. And that represented 57% of the total capital base of the standalone primary dealers. That means the ones that are not owned by the banks, but the individual primary dealers. 57%. This is the new boy on the block. And much of this money, well, as we've just heard, 8.5 billion is belonging to the EPF, or the loss of the EPF. You see, somebody loses, somebody has to gain.
And we know who gained it.
Yes.
The people of the country is the losers. When it comes to the People's Trust Fund, People's Provident Fund, it was the 6 million people hard-earned money.
Now, I do have confirmation from the governor of the central bank that they are appointing a firm to do the forensic audit. But my point is, it's awfully slow. It's like that.
Unbelievably slow.
Yes,
and
it's like that slow.
The reasons, I think, the political motivations behind this is always the question.
There doesn't seem to be the political will, Keerthi.
There's no political will because some of the politicians are behind this. This Arjuna Mahendran was selected to do the operation by some politicians, and this part of the story is not investigated at all.
Indeed. Does it really now that this has all happened, and when you look at Malik Samaravikrama, you know, everywhere, almost everywhere, you know, if there's some controversy, Malik's name is mentioned, subject to all sorts of things. But what I'm trying to say is, there's no smoke without fire. You know, so is there a case that we should not have these appointed people, that they should all be elected?
When it comes to the elections and elected, for that matter, very carefully use that particular word. Yeah. I think, the paper headlines says it all. Yeah. The Mahinda Deshapriya is coming very strong. The election commission is coming very strongly on delaying on the elections. And yesterday I met the Kurunegala district newly elected provincial local councillors, and they are really seems like frustrated about the way of things happening at the local levels, village levels. Very rural people saying that they don't have the facilities to do this, they don't have the adequate funds to do this. There are frustration going politically, and the delaying of elections becoming a major issue, as we saw, as you very correctly said, 2.5 years delay of local council elections. Finally, the government has to pay the penalty. And moreover, now 3 provincial councils, North, Central, Sabaragamu and Eastern provincial council elections were due some 6 months ago. And in the other hand, by October 28th, there will be another 3 local councils definitely should go for election. elections.
Yeah.
And we saw yesterday the party leaders has not agreed on the system.
Yes.
The party leaders, the elections are delaying just because of the party leaders are still undecided on electoral system.
Yeah.
This is very deliberate attempt to delay the further elections of the provincial councils. And here the universal franchise, the provincial council elections are part of universal franchise.
Yeah.
And we saw at delaying of by delaying the local council elections, we have to pay a huge penalty. The dengue rate has gone up, the garbage problem and all that has happened, and we cannot imagine by October 30th, 6 out of 9 provincial councils operating without the representation.
Yes.
So this could further make questions about how the people's representation is done, how the good governance is done. Is what the country need is the transparent administration with public representation. But if the present government thinks they can operate with government officials, I think that is not the democracy for it.
Our government officials are apparently acting very, very soft and without a backbone. And I say this because we need to have a look at what's happening with Singapore. Now, Singapore portrays itself as this, highly, well, it is a highly successful country and so on, and it has all this thing about anti-corruption and good governance and all that, and willing to sign FTA with Sri Lanka. However, in spite of their other stances, they are not willing, clearly, they appear at least to be unwilling to return to us the most
wanted man for Sri Lanka,
Arjuna Lakshman Mahendran, popularly would be probably the most wanted man here. Now we want him back. We want, and quite frankly, I think that our what do you say if I said to you, Keerthi, that our foreign ministry should take a very tough stance and say, sorry, you return this guy to us, and therefore, thereafter, we will negotiate the FTA. What do you think?
It is never going to happen, as we know, everyone knows that the present government, the UNP part of the government, I will say, is behind this bond scam. And actually, the people who's opposing this Singaporean fact on this has to take this particular part of to their campaign. Yesterday's protest by the joint opposition, I won't say it's a very really successful protest. The selection of the theme for that particular protest is not what we looked for. There are burning issues of the country. The real opposition has to take up the part of the opposition which things related to the common people. But that part of the story is not happening here. Yeah. Everyone is threatening for strikes, demand taking people into the streets and all that. But here, what are the burning issues of the country? Agriculture, transportation and all that. The people are having the burden here. The farmers, fisheries, industries unshaken. The transportation is one of the key issues which has not addressed by the present government. So these issues are not raised. They are looking. They actually, in the other hand, we don't see that the joint opposition is taking a real say or go on the issue of the provincial council elections. Yeah. They try to have a protest and all that, but it has not materialized.
Now, I just want to ask you, we've got about 5-6 minutes left. I just want to ask you, you went around the country, you were mentioning you went to all sorts of places. What is the, sorry, I beg your pardon, what is the people's pulse? Really? Are they really wanting elections, or is it, are they just, they can't care?
No, people, well, I mean, whether the elections is something people show their happiness or the frustration about the government, or the hope for new sort of agenda, a new way of life for them, for that matter. Getting a selection, talking about principles, actions, for that matter. The delaying of the provincial council election is having a burden on the people, and the burden people who was looking to contest.
What do the people hope to change with the holding of
election? They are really frustrated of not taking care of their day-to-day lives. The infection on the other hand, the market issues related to
when you went around the country, did you detect any concern? Were the people really interested in the FTA with Singapore?
No one is caring.
Okay, ask another question then. Are they really interested in having super highways to go to Kandy?
No, not at all. When I went to Putlam, they are talking about the issues related to the tourism. Hawaii, the tourism industry is making more and more issues than real progress at the moment.
Did some people mention fly ash in that?
That's Norocholi fly ash issue. We went there with Suren Batakuda, the Secretary of the Power and Energy Ministry. There were promises made for almost 3 years now, and
none of them
promises has delivered down there. There's a factory came on, a Chinese investor is down there looking to start his fly ash project down there.
Now this person, a viewer, sends this question to me regularly. I'm going to ask you. The question is this: the length of time the various investigations are taking is dissipating the momentum. Can I, as a pensioner, sue the pension fund and blow the lid off this whole sordid scam? Can the pensioners sue the EPF for inaction, for putting
this is
them
something we were talking to the trade union leaders for some 6-7 months now, and we have consulted some of the lawyers to take this sort of action through a trade union. The issue here, the investigators or the information which is only available at the central bank has to is needed for this sort of investigation. And in the other hand, even though some credit has gone to the central bank during the measures they have taken on the secondary bond market and all that during the last 6-7 months, the real issues concerned to the EPF and the ETF has not taken care of by the central bank. So
now another question, Keerthi. Sorry to cut you there, but we've got a few minutes left. Another question, it's not a question, it's a statement, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, sure.
It says here, our government must have made a deal with Singapore to keep Arjuna Mahendran there. And then we will sign the FTA as a gift in return. Now that's another viewpoint.
It's a very realistic viewpoint, because the Arjuna Mahendran is the key man. Arjuna Mahendran must be brought in here, or otherwise I think
why can't we now, if he's not being brought back, and the Prime Minister, the man who knew everything about Mahendran, who said no, don't worry, nothing,
all the promises, the promises,
and then he said when he went abroad at one time, he said, oh, he's only gone for a wedding, he'll be back, not like Udanga, not like Jali, and so on. Okay. Now, he even said later, when he went sort of missing, he said, well, he's not at that address, because like all of Singaporeans, they are in the habit of moving house. So, Mr. Prime Minister of our country also knew those minute details of Arjuna Mahendran, that he's going to move house. Really. I have researched this. I can't really find anything to suggest that there is any unusual thing in Singapore that Singaporeans like and love to move around. They're only a small country anyway.
Yeah.
Right? They move when
and they can track people within 2-3 minutes.
Yes, exactly. So all this is a little bit tosh, and then the Prime Minister expects us to now believe that he really doesn't know anything about him.
I think, until the political motivation comes to unveil the whole issue and to punish the culprits on the treasury bond issue, which is involved by the very high profile politicians.
Don't you think, now that obviously the people have lost faith in these politicians?
Definitely, yes.
Don't you think that the time is more than right for the officials from the Attorney General's Department and even the Bribery Commission to stop making excuses? That means the bribery people are saying, well, look, we don't have the laws. But there is another school of thought that they can record statements and charge them. And certainly the AG's department can do it. Perhaps it's time for them to stand up against their political masters and say, enough is enough. We are now going to act for and on behalf of the people of the country.
Faraz, I see the thing in a different way. As a person who was very closely monitoring these movements of the investigators and the AG's department,
yeah.
I think but during the last 5 weeks, the things are getting slower and slower. The pressure on the officials, investigators are getting more and more from the leading politicians. And we are seeing a moment where the investigations are just keeping down each and every day. For last 5 weeks it has happened.
So what do you think the chances of this forensic audit?
Forensic audit is some totally different thing.
Yes, of course. But what do you think the chances are? The governor says that they've advertised and so on.
Yes, they have advertised, and my understanding it will take another 4 months to award this particular thing to a international auditor. So 4 months to award the contract to an international auditor.
How many months to look at it?
Maybe at least my understanding with the professionals, I got the information and expertise on this, needs at least 6 months to do a proper forensic.
So it's almost time for the elections.
It's almost
do you think, now that you are an election monitor, last question, do you think that you as election monitor will agree that should we have the elections postponed, the parliamentary and presidential, shall we postpone them until the bond report is completely done and prosecuted?
So it will take another 20-30 years, I'll say, it seems like. We should have elections, and this is the only chance the people of the country will get a voice to say that enough is enough.
Very quickly, honestly, last question. What do you think? Do you think Sri Lanka will ever have somebody like doing Imran Khan, where a rank outsider comes in?
I think, more and more possibilities that the total outsider will come into the 2020 presidential election, it seems.
Keerthi Tennakoon, it's been marvellous having you here, and this half an hour has just disappeared. Well, that's the way it was on Newsline on this wonderful day. And as you go about your business, remember that it's Friday, the 3rd of August, and elections looming. One more time, please remember the March the 12th declaration. Think before you vote. Take care. God bless.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.